Bom tarde, Aquaba. Welcome. Hello. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. And we hope that you are reaching your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual strength today. We hope you're doing very well. And if you're not, that you're rapidly arriving at that point. And we want to thank you for joining us for this episode of Our Ancestors' Voices, a weekly program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Every Sunday at the same time, we're coming at you, and we have a very critical topic today, the rebirth of radical African activism. So we're glad that you're able to join us for this topic today. Really, the focus of the topic is over the last several years, and this is, remember, we're coming at it from an international perspective, not just from that of the United Snakes of America, but international. And so for the last several years, we believe there's been an onslaught of right-wing political opportunism that is posed as analysis coming out of, African communities, particularly on the African continent, but also in the diaspora. And so what we're seeing most recently is this rebirth of radical, independent African organizing efforts. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and we're glad that you're here to join us in doing that. We give much thanks to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere and respect to them in their struggle for liberation and forward progress, and to reclaim these lands which rightfully belong to them. And we give continued respect to our ancestors, and we pay special respect to the physical transition a few days ago of Dr. Mutulu Shakur. And if you don't know who Dr. Mutulu Shakur is, he was a fervent and dedicated revolutionary African who had spent 36 years incarcerated behind the walls of this backward empire for his work to contribute to the liberation of African people. And they issued what they call, ironically, a compassionate release a couple of months ago, because he suffered from terminal cancer. And unfortunately, he was unable to continue that battle against cancer up until this last Thursday, July 6th, he made his physical transition. But we will never forget the spirit of Dr. Mutulu Shakur. He was a dedicated Black Panther Party member in the New York Black Panther Party chapter. He then became a consistent member in the Black Liberation Army and engaged in the Black Liberation Army BLA's work as a committed member of that organization, as well as the New African Independence movement that he was dedicated to and a part of. And as a result of that, he ended up becoming captured by our enemies and serving time for two separate charges. One, the 1981 Brinks robbery, where African revolutionaries were expropriating money to use for the African Revolution from the capitalists. And then also for along with Marilyn Buck, our honored European comrade who had made her physical transition 13 years ago, Dr. Mutulu was convicted for helping our sister Assata Shakur escape the empire and seek safety in socialist Cuba. So we are saddened by the physical loss of Dr. Mutulu Shakur, but this work that we do in honor of Dr. Mutulu Shakur. So we want to dedicate this program today because we know that he will want us to keep engaging in our work to challenge this empire. We know this. So we dedicate this program today to his physical memory, and we continue and will always be inspired by his spirit and his determination to ensure that African people are free and that we make our rightful contribution to humanity. So we start with our usual introductions, just to say that Our Ancestors' Voices is sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the APRP, and the APRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass, Pan-African political party with its base in Africa. And our objective is Pan-Africanism, which we correctly define as one unified socialist Africa. And we believe this definition is the healing mechanism for African people scattered and suffering all over the planet Earth today. And our work to achieve Pan-Africanism is not carried out on a whim, but based on a scientific strategy outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's book, The Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, where we want to unite all the revolutionary Pan-African formations on the ground who agree with the definition of one unified socialist Africa. And there are many, and we are growing every single day and gaining strength and capacity. Our Ancestors' Voices is hosted each week by myself, Ajamu, and Shakura, my biological and ideological daughter. And this is just one of many AAPRP programs designed to educate, agitate, and organize African people for the African Revolution. So to get us started, I will turn it over to Shakura.
Greetings, everyone. We hope you are continuing to do as best you can with everything that's going on. It's been very interesting, I will say. These last couple of days, I've been trying to understand more about capitalism. You know, the more you understand about your enemy, the better you are prepared to deal with it. And so just kind of doing some more research and sharing some things with you all in terms of how I've been trying to navigate that. But I do think that it's consistent with the findings that we have been talking about since this broadcast first started so many moons ago, and that imperialism and capitalism are working really, really hard to make sure that Africa does not get back in the hands of African people, and that the Americas and parts of Chile and parts of Canada do not get back in the hands of the indigenous people. Occupy Palestine does not get back in the hands of Palestinians. The list goes on. And so we have to continue to think about ways that we can find a way to still stay focused and to still comrade together and have collectivism and principles such as humanism and egalitarianism, because those are principles that are going to help us achieve our goal. And whether you are organizing with the All African People's Revolutionary Party or another organization that is working for justice, you understand that we have an ultimate goal to change the conditions for people everywhere. If you didn't, you probably wouldn't be in an organization that was working for justice. And so we have to stay focused with that, because that's the objective. And it's going to become harder and harder and harder to do that if we ourselves are not committed to this reality that we must make sure that we stay tuned to what it is we are trying to accomplish. You know, we can think in more detail about how there is more power in numbers. And we can also think about how we ourselves are what we've been waiting for. We also have the tools needed to be able to fix a lot of the problems and conditions that we're dealing with. But to be able to do that, first, we would have to acknowledge that there is, in fact, a problem. And I think for a lot of African people, I don't know if they really have accepted the fact that they can still change the conditions. I think that they think that it's just more easier to just accept that it is what it is, right? Or maybe they just don't even know how to think critically enough to understand that they do have the ability with their organizations to change the conditions for other people, but maybe they're too self-centered or individualistically centering themselves to understand that there's more to this reality than just their pleasure, right? Like however you want to slice and dice it, I think these are some of the complications that we're dealing with, because I've said before that self-efficacy is our key, right? Us believing as a people that we can accomplish this, but we have to achieve that. And I would argue in order to have self-efficacy, one would need to have self-esteem and to believe that there is a possibility that you have the capability to do something, which means then you now believe that as a collective, we have the capability to do something. So, you know, I think the other part of that is understanding where does this power come from? And we've said before that land equals power. So yes, our objective is to get access to Africa back, but not just to have the land back. We want to develop ways that we can identify how to control the resources that are coming through the continent, that are being produced on the continent, that are being sold from the continent. We want to control as much of that as possible. We want to determine how it's being utilized, where it's being sent, why is it being sent there, how much profit is it going to make from Mother Africa, so that we can continue to undo all of the traumatic harm and colonization that has been done to the continent and to our people. And I would also argue that if we're doing that, then part of that means understanding how to decenter white supremacy. And I say that with intention, because for us to believe that we can come together, for us to believe that we have the ability to fix this, for us to believe that this does not have to be our reality 2 or 3 years from now, or 5 or 6 years from now, that means that we need to get out of our own way. And capitalism and white supremacy have worked really, really hard to teach us every single moment of every single day, and then to reinforce that lesson every single moment and every single day, that we are not enough and that we will never be able to get our land back. And if you don't believe me, we can think about examples of us as African people promoting white supremacy. So I'm not sure how we're supposed to believe that we can come together and that we can make a change if we don't even believe that we can be peaceful with one another. So if you hear someone in your family saying, oh, that's a group of Africans over there, they're about to break out in a fight, or, oh, that's a group of indigenous people, that they're not going to last very long. Or if you go to a high school graduation and you assume that there's going to be violence there because the student population is majority African and indigenous, or African and Asian, or whatever the case may be. And so these are just some different examples, you all, of how we're going to have to unbreak those chains, ideologically, physically, spiritually, mentally, all of those things. And, we should understand that in breaking those chains, we're literally going to have a sense of freedom that we've never felt before, because the colonizer has been influencing every single thing that we have done. Besides taking breath of life, they have influenced everything else that we have done. They have influenced how we think. They've influenced what we think about. They've influenced why we think about it. They've influenced how frequently we think about what we think about. And if you don't believe me, you can just pay attention to your supermarket scan card and how you're getting sent coupons now based on what you're buying, or the fact that coupons are being mailed to you in the mail because of what you had on your last receipt 2 weeks ago. These systems are tracking how you're spending your money because they want you to spend as much of it as you can. So they're trying to make sure that they reach you in every way they can. If you bought a body wash 7 years ago, they might be showing you a commercial about it on your phone. They might be pulling it up so that you can see that body wash. And then you're reminded of what that body wash felt like on your skin. And now you're thinking of buying it again. And they're going to do everything they can to tell you that you need to have the latest and greatest of all of these things that are for sale, so that we can continue to protect capitalism by any means, which means there's not going to have a lot of time for us to think about coming together because we're too busy trying to protect the lives that we have. And that simply is not okay. It's also not efficient, and it's just not effective, because in the long run, we're not really happy with the realities that we have. Because if that were truly the case, then we wouldn't be experiencing all of these downfalls, such as depression and, sense of insecurities and things of that, when we still see African people, indigenous people being treated badly, whether that's through police, whether that's through the system, whether that's through your friend who told you that they got denied a loan and you know that it had some type of racial connection to it, like whatever the case may be. And so I think that we have to truly, truly, truly unpack the ability to understand that this reality can change. We don't have to live in the same world forever. And we are the ones who can do something about it. But as always, you're always going to have that are against you. And sometimes they're going to work harder than you to let you know that you're not going to mess up what they have. There are some of us who are very comfortable with this reality. We are okay with the fact that we are oppressed. Some of us love that. Because at least we have a 6-figure job. And so we're okay with that. And so, we understand that we can accomplish this, but we also need to understand that we're going to have to take some of our comrades out, because they're not going to understand that this is the reality that is not working for the majority. So therefore it needs to be excavated out and taken out. And so, we can try some different civil approaches, but ultimately there's going to need to be a conversation around, so what happens if we have talked to this person repeatedly? What happens if we've tried negotiating? What happens if we've tried this? What happens if we tried that? And they're still protecting capitalism. What do we do then? And ultimately, being able to have a plan of how to deal with that will be another part of this over-ending goal for us to achieve what we're trying to achieve. But again, we're going to have to understand that that means that some sacrifices are going to have to take place. And part of that sacrifice, next slide, please. Part of that sacrifice is understanding that we don't need to support capitalism anymore. We actually need to start resisting capitalism as much as possible. I mean, there are things that we can do right now. I'm not saying that you should stop buying toothpaste and stop buying hair care products and stop buying things that you need to enhance your health. Those are things that we need to survive. So I'm not saying that, but I am saying that you don't have to buy things that support the institutional holidays that represent capitalism. That is something that you can make a choice to omit against. You don't need those things to be dependent on your life. You can actually choose to not celebrate those things and actually still seek celebrating truth and justice loving institutions instead. Celebrating your family based on truth and justice, not based on lies of somebody's land being stolen and their people being raped and murdered and killed, or the people being kidnapped. That's not what you should be celebrating. And you should constantly be encouraging other people in your circles not to celebrate it as well. So there are different ways that we can go about resisting capitalism and trying to survive so that we can continue to save our energy towards the organizations that we're a part of that are working for justice. We also need to understand that in terms of sacrifices from our standpoint, this means that we're going up against a system that has been working overtime for centuries to work really hard to break us down and to remind us that we are not enough over and over and over again. They have had much time to plan this out, you all. They have had centuries, literally, to plan this out. They've had centuries to sit down and strategize. They've had centuries to sit down and be strategic in how they go about figuring out what are all the best ways to hit us where it hurts the most, and how can they continue to hit us, and how can they maintain that level of dehumanization as much as possible. We're not dealing with amateurs. We are not dealing with amateurs. And so those are things that we need to keep in mind, because everything is built off of tiers and structures. And that's how capitalism thrives, because everything is about value and about assigning the highest to the lowest and all this other nonsense rhetoric that exists. And so that means that we need to understand that that means that there have been many, many, many stepping stones for us to have to try to navigate figuring out a way to take all of that down. And so, you know, we understand that these folks have immense organizational skills, because they have more experience, because they also were planning this before the kidnappings in Africa even took place. But beyond that, they also have been able to maintain said organizational skills. They've been able to maintain capitalism. Now, we've said before that capitalism is crumbling, and it is. But by the same token, it still exists, even though it is slowly deteriorating. It does still exist. And because it exists, that's where that organization and maintenance on the oppressor and the power person's part comes into play, is understanding how they've been able to do this so long for so many years. And so we have to really think more in tune with that, because that's what I was speaking to earlier about. This is where the insecurities come in. This is where, because they have so many years on us in terms of reminding us that we are incapable and that we should just accept the reality. But we have to think bigger than that. We have to think bigger than that. And we have to have hope. We have to have hope, because I think ultimately hope is one of the few things it could be taken from us. But we also have had hope in other spaces, and it has feared us well. And I would say examples of that are seeing African children being born in today's society. Now, yes, they're born in a capitalist system, but ultimately we have an opportunity to try to engage with them and to teach them about their motherland. I mean, what better gift can you imagine giving someone than teaching them truly who they are and allowing them to then combat that and discourse with the other rhetorics that exist, and helping them to understand, no, that other stuff is not even, you shouldn't even receive that. We should actually decenter that, and we should help you to not understand why you need to accept that because of this, this, and this. You are African, period. And teaching them songs so that they can understand it. Whether it's YPI, the Young Pioneers Institute, and the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and the chants that they used to teach us growing up. A is for Africa, the land of our home. B is for the bravery which our people have shown. C is for, oh Lord, I didn't forgot the thing. But my point is, my point is, these are effective tools. That is my point. Okay. And if you give me a moment, it can come back to me because I wrote it down. So I know I have it. But that's capitalism. Capitalism is working overtime to make me forget. Okay. So this is why we need to target our children so we can help them, remind them, more importantly, of who they are, because they have already been taught in the womb who they are not. Okay. And they are not African based on being in the womb. Unfortunately, they've been sold the patriotic American rhetoric. So we have to decenter that, and we have to help them unlearn that. We have to do everything we can to help them focus on that. And we should teach them young that it's important to join an organization working for justice. You would actually be able to accomplish two goals in doing that. If you taught your godchild or your niece or your nephew, or maybe a young child in your family, why it was important to join an organization working for justice, A, and B, that they are African, and giving them some different examples of why it's okay for them to enhance their Africanness, then you would be able to also teach them the power of compassion, the power of humanity, the power of helping them to understand humanism and allowing them to understand they have a responsibility. Everybody has a job to do. So now you're really starting to impart some socialist values on this young child's mind. And whether they know it or not, whether they can give the umbrella term that that is in fact socialism, those days will come. Right now, we just need to teach them the basics so that they can apply it and operate it and be humanistic at the age of 3. Be kind at the age of 5. Be compassionate and considerate at the age of 6, 7, 8, into preteen, and so on and so forth. That's where that's going to come. And that's where it's going to drive them to then continue on and carry those values into their adulthood. And before you know it, they'll be filling out the interest blog on the AAPRP's website, and they will join an organization that's working for justice. And so that's where that comes, you all. But it's going to take a lot of intention on our part. And as soldiers in this war, and as folks that are fighting together, we're going to need to remember what it means to believe and to have hope. It's very easy to lose that in this time, especially because capitalism is working overtime to wear you down. And capitalism is working overtime to teach you that you have never been enough, and you won't be enough, and you are incapable, and you are incompetent, and all these other words that have truly been detrimental to our existence on this earth. But the bottom line is, we've always been enough. The bottom line is, we were never incompetent. The bottom line is, we are capable. And I say that because if we weren't capable, why would you kidnap us and make us enslaved animals? Why would you steal the indigenous people's land if they are incapable? They're clearly capable, and they have mass resources. That's why you stole their land. We are clearly capable, and we have mass resources. That's why you stole our land and us. But we have a responsibility to take it back. And we also understand that in having that responsibility, we understand that we have a responsibility to believe that we can take it back. And I'll close with this, you all. You have to remember, we're not alone. We've been saying this whole time to join an organization that's working for justice, because we are going to be working with the indigenous peoples and their organizations. We're going to be working with the Palestinian people and their organizations. We're going to be working with other colonized people. And we probably will also be working with differently abled social justice organizations. We will most definitely be working with marginalized non-male femme organizations that are resisting patriarchy and sexism. We will most definitely be working with LGBTQ alliance organizations that understand why homophobia and transphobia and xenophobia are simply not going to help justice-seeking people get what they deserve. And in a lot of spaces, the base of that is understanding that colonization is the #1 threat. And that's really the common denominator between these organizations, is they all understand the impacts of that and how it is now tread into giving birth to white supremacy, birth to homophobia, birth to patriarchy, birth to racism, and all of these things, and so on and so forth. So we encourage you to join an organization that's working for justice, not for yourself, not for your family members, but for the unborn children out there who don't even know who they are because they've already been taught that they don't matter and they're not even born yet. Join an organization that's working for justice so that you can actually teach someone that they have something to be proud of. Because if you have had a chance to go home to Africa, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, I would strongly recommend you start saving up. There are plenty of institutions that will help you get there. And we have resources there where we have comrades on the continent. If you are organizing with our organization, who would be more than happy to show you just what you've been missing. But I can't even describe the experience that I'd had when I went there. And I will definitely be going back home very soon, because it's important to stay connected to your homeland and your motherland, because that reminds you of who you are. And if you ever forget it, the best way to be reminded is to go back home. Join an organization that's working for justice.
Ashe, obrigada, medasi. You know, a lot of what you were saying, Shakur, it made me think of, you know, what is the point? Like we always say organization, organization, organization. And I know a lot of people, like they just really don't get why that's important. I know that's what a lot of people think, because I talk to a lot of people and I listen to what they say. And, you know, this bourgeois society, it's really got people mixed up. Like people believe that we are better positioned to solve the problems we face individually than collectively. I mean, that shows you how warped they have gotten us to think. But I think the best way to combat that is to really bring these concepts to folks on a consistent basis in a clear and concise way as best we can. So I would say for the remainder of this program today, we're going to talk about organizing work that's happening. And I think you should put it in the context that reads like this. This system of international capitalism and imperialism, it will only be destroyed, in our view, when the masses of people rise up in the same direction and take it down and replace it with something better. So when we talk about joining an organization, that's what we mean, is getting people engaged in a process that helps them create capacity to make change. And what we mean by making change is creating new human beings. Because today, the human beings we have today, that's not what we need. You know, we don't need millions of people who are dedicated to just getting a bigger house or a better car or an electric car or a better vacation. Nothing wrong with any of those things, but that cannot be our primary focus for living. And for a lot of us, it is our primary focus. So when we say create new human beings, what we're saying is create human beings that have a higher level of consciousness, a higher level of selflessness, and understanding that the world is not an extension of their nose, but they have a responsibility to the rest of the living beings on the planet Earth and the planet Earth itself, and that they have to take that responsibility to mean that they will engage in defending those things. They will defend humanity. They will defend living creatures. They will defend the planet, and they will pay a price to defend it if necessary to make sure that happens. That's what we're talking about when we say create new human beings. So that's going to require a mass level of consciousness. And Shakur talked about her experience growing up in the Young Pioneer Institute within the All African People's Revolutionary Party. And what I would say is that her talking about that gave me a great reminder of a great example of what I just got through saying, because Friday night I had an opportunity, like I do a lot of times. I go out, you know, anytime there's any type of event, you know, these people are determined to crush dissent and to do it in a fascist way. And by fascist, we mean to create a police state where people are unable to be free and function and reach their full potential. They have to just simply work and exist in a way that's conducive to the capitalist system. And if they don't, the police state will bring violence against them. So we're constantly faced with that, right? And so whenever there's an effort happening, whether it's to talk about white supremacy, whether it's to LGBTQ community having a drag show, whether it's women asserting their rights, whether it's labor saying that working people need to be respected, certainly whether it's, again, African folks, indigenous folks talking about our right to self-determination, any of those things that happen, these fascist elements come out and they make threats because they know that they have to do their best to try to shut down those activities, because those activities are the key to us building this capacity that I'm talking about. And so Friday night, I had another opportunity, I several times a month do this, to go out to an event that was happening here locally where these people had made threats. These militia people, Proud Boys, Poop Butts, whoever they are, made threats. And typically they come out and oftentimes they're physical clashes, and people like myself are there to help guide people on how to make sure we beat the hell out of those people, just to be totally honest with you, and stop them from being fascist and restrictive against people who are simply trying to live their lives with dignity and humanity. So Friday night, I had the opportunity to go to one of those events and participate and help out and help lead the security efforts, and was greeted by one of the another youth who had grown up in the APRP's Young Pioneer Institute, who had come out and wanting to help to secure the event, and hadn't seen this person in a while. And, we were happy to see each other. And they articulated the same types of things that Shakura had said, that, the way they grew up had taken them to a point where now they want to use that to do something to serve humanity. And that's exactly what we're trying to do, is to create that on an ongoing basis and create it everywhere on a mass level where people have it. So, it's important to get there to understand what we're up against. And so what has capitalism done to make it more difficult for us to do that? And I think in order to understand that, it's just important for folks to realize, what's happening today and what's been happening. Like for quite some time, and you don't have to go far to see this, but for quite some time, the dominant analysis coming out of the African community. Again, when I say African community, I'm not just talking about California or the United Snakes. I'm talking about worldwide. The dominant narratives coming out of African communities has been this increasing move towards the right wing, increasing move to embrace capitalism and to see our entire existence as one of just simply figuring out a way for us to exist within the capitalist system. Now, that looks a little different if you're in the Dominican Republic as opposed to Canada or Germany or Nigeria, but it's still the same message that's being promoted out of African communities. And it's so dominant that you can see it anywhere. Like you can turn on social media and you constantly see this. These people talking about how we can build wealth, how we can build this wealth to get us out of oppression. And even expanding to sports, like even in sports talk, you have these pig's feet and chitlins eating coons on here. And they're, any effort to try to raise any contradiction about white supremacy in the football matches in Europe or anywhere else in the world they march out these pig's feet eating coons, and they talk about there's no racism, there's no problem, people just need to be not so sensitive. So this has been the dominant thing that's been happening, and the whole strategy behind this is to normalize this type of capitalist thinking, and to make it so normalized that when people talk the way we do in the APRP and the New African Movement and all of the other movements, that's considered so extreme that people think we're just insane. So this is the strategy of the capitalist system. It's perfected this bourgeoisie model. And you see on the screen here, if you're looking at a screen, these people like Dangati, who's the guy in the hard hat. He's one of the very richest people in Africa. He's in Nigeria, and he does so-called food development work. We failed to see where the food has reached the mouths of the masses of African people, but somehow or another, this fool became a billionaire based on whatever the hell it is he's supposed to be doing. And then, of course, most of you know the other ones, Beyonce, the Miss Queen petty bourgeoisie, and you have the Obamas, who, of course, are the prototype for the African bourgeoisie in the world today. And so this is the model that's promoted among our people. And, the emphasis is that, you just have to work as an individual and you can become any one of these people. And that should be your goal. That's our struggle. That's come to be defined as our struggles to become these people. And the reality is that these people don't even represent 1% of our people on the planet Earth. They don't even represent that. And not only that, but what they're doing and how they got to be where they are today, the pathway they had to take to get where they are today has caused unmitigated damage against our people. That's the important part that I think most of us don't even understand how to interpret. It's caused unmitigated damage in order to create these businesses that are getting all of this international money and claiming to solve starvation in Africa and clearly not making any progress that's worth mentioning. This is a step backward for our people who are experiencing starvation, because this creates this false narrative that, this is being addressed. All I have to do is donate money to these corporations and it's happening. This is this celebrity culture that exists in the world, particularly here in the number one empire on the planet Earth, is very damaging to our people. You have someone like Beyonce who, does Super Bowl and does a tribute to the Black Panther Party. And then, ever since then has done nothing but produce backward lyric records that take us back and done, nothing to advance our people on a collective level. I could talk all day about Obama and what kind of damage that's done to our ability to advance collectively as a people with this individualistic model and just this really white supremacist based model that the farther we rise in the white man's system, that's a definition of progress. That right there is saying that we ain't worth a damn, because the only way we can measure our value is based on how far we advance in our enemy's system. That right there is you're saying that we're not worth a damn. Why they, and you see it even in a subtle way. If you watch all these videos on social media, I'm sick of seeing all these racists and these people videotaping these racists going on these racist tirades against us, not just in this country, in Europe, in Australia, all over the world, it's happening. I'm sick of seeing that. I don't know why you all even watch that nonsense, because what they're doing is the image that's being promoted is that you don't have any agency and that, all you can do is just hope these people wake up. I want to see videos where somebody's being racist like that and people are knocking the hell out of them. Now, that's the video that should go viral. Those are the kind of videos we need to see. I don't want to see no video. I've been called the N-word so many times by European people. I don't need to see a video of that. I already understand that. But this is where they have us. And so that's why this concept, again, is rooted in their strategy to steer us completely and to make us believe that the only option we have is acceptance within the capitalist system. And the move to the right within the capitalist system, it organizes us in that direction, and it negates the history of how we have actually made any progress. If you look at the way that we have made progress as a people, it's always been through the mass, organized, and independent movements that we've created. It's never been through nonprofits. It's never been through corporations. It's never been through bourgeoisie electoral politics. It has always been through the mass independent organization that we have created. And that's what they want you to forget, because I would argue that today, most of our people have no understanding of what I just said. Most of our people think the only pathway to progress is bourgeois politics, electing someone like Obama and listening to him riff about nothing and thinking, oh, that's so beautiful. He's so beautiful. His family's so beautiful. When we, at the end of the day, have nothing to show for any of that. And totally forgetting that if it were not for the mass independent struggle that we've gauged, you wouldn't have ever had a Beyonce or a Barack Obama in the first place. So that's where we need to redirect our vision, to that mass independent struggle. The Convention People's Party in Ghana, mass independent. The Democratic Party in Guinea, mass independent. The African Party for Independence of Guinea-Bissau, mass independent. The Pan-Africanist Congress and the Azanian People's Organization in Azania, so-called South Africa, mass independent. The Pan-African Union of Sierra Leone, mass independent. The Amilcar Cabral Ideological School of Nigeria, mass independent. The All-African People's Revolutionary Party, mass independent. The Black Panther Party, mass independent. The Universal Negro Association of Marcus Mosiah Garvey, mass independent. The Revolutionary Action Movement, mass independent. The Land and Freedom Organization, or the Mau Mau, mass independent. These are the organizations that have gotten us where we are today, not this collection of sorry Negroes you're looking at on the screen right here. So this is what we have to understand and respect and get back to if we're really talking about putting ourselves in a position to make any clear progress. So there are several strong examples. Thank God. Thank the ancestors. Thank Jesus. Thank Allah. Thank Jehovah or Jah Rastafari. Thank all of them. And if you don't believe in any of them, thank good luck that we have come to a place where we are seeing a turn away from this right-wing petty bourgeoisie narrative and coming back to the thing where we need to be: independent mass political organizing. And there are a number of things like the National Black Organziing Conference that took place a couple of weeks ago in Atlanta. And that conference had an international focus. That's what's critical. It's not just a bunch of Negroes getting in a room talking about, well, how can we beg the massa for reparations? How can we negotiate with our massa for reparations? That's not what we need. That's not going to get us anywhere. This conference was about, and I wasn't there, but I studied. So I know what was going on there. They talked about the 62-year embargo against socialist Cuba. They talked about how to intensify our Pan-African work. And these were Africans from numerous organizations, including the AAPRP. So this is the type of focus that we need, you all. And this has been lacking, sorely lacking, for several years now. So if you're really concerned about real liberation, this is a very positive sign. And I know that we'll have more of these growing in the future. This is exactly what we need on an international level, to have this level of consciousness and this level of dialogue. Because again, the example I gave of the young person I saw Friday night, it'll help us build that level of consciousness, which will help us build the capacity we need. So this is a very positive thing. And then also another great example is what happened in Guinea-Bissau a couple of weeks ago. The victory of the African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau, the PAIGC, winning parliamentary elections in Guinea-Bissau, winning by 97%, I believe was the final total. And meaning that the PAIGC controls the parliamentary legislature in Guinea-Bissau. And as we've told you a million times, the PAIGC is a revolutionary Pan-Africanist political party founded by Amilcar Cabral in unity, in unison with the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. You can't tell me nothing about that. Well, you ain't really in unity with them. No, you don't know what the hell you're talking about, because the now prime minister of the entire country of Guinea-Bissau, Brother Domingos Piera, that same African handed me personally in January when I was there in Guinea-Bissau my membership card to the PAIGC, because he understood, and the PAIGC understands, that the PAIGC, the AAPRP, Pan-Afu, the Amilcar Cabral Ideological School, the PAC, the PDG, all of these Pan-Africanists revolutionary organizations are one. They understand that. So this parliamentary victory is important because what it shows you is that out of the millions of people, and I saw this when I was in Guinea-Bissau, how much the masses of people in Guinea-Bissau supported the PAIGC, but it demonstrates that the masses of African people are ready for this type of international African liberation struggle. They're ready for this. They want this. They know this is the solution to the problems that they face. Whether they're in New York, whether they're in Guinea-Bissau, it doesn't matter. People are coming to understand this. So this is a very important example to illustrate this. Now, of course, we know that the enemy is never going to stop, and they're going to continue to wage sabotage against the PAIGC. But we also know our best defense against that is the continued mass political education of the masses of African people. And that's the work that we're engaged in. Another great example of this move to rebirth of radical independent organizing is the recent decision by the Pan-Africanist Congress in Azania, or what you call South Africa, and the Azanian People's Organization in Azania, or what you call South Africa, to form a mutual agreement to work together. Because ultimately, we want all of our Pan-African organizations to be one organization, what Nkrumah called the All-African Committee for Political Coordination. So the examples we're giving you, what the PAC and AZAPO has done, what the PAIGC has done, what the PAIGC has done with the AAPRP and is doing, what the AAPRP is doing with the PAC and AZAPO and all of these other organizations I've been mentioning. This is in my humble view, the most critical example of the mass, independent, revolutionary Pan-Africanist model that I've been talking about that we need. This is a great example of that, and it's where we need to go. And it serves the importance of independent African organizing as our model versus the bourgeoisie electoral or nonprofit model. How nonprofits, a lot of great people work for nonprofits. I'm not bagging on the people who work in it, because that's what a lot of you, well, you criticizing me, I do my work. I work for Black chitlins, and you criticizing me working for Black chitlins. No one's criticizing you for working for Black chitlins or eating Black chitlins. What we're saying is that your organizational model, it's great for you to do some things there, some reform things here and there, and it's great, and that's good. And it's great for you to make money to feed yourself and your family. That's good. But your entire existence is based on contributions from corporations. We need to destroy capitalism, which is the foundation of corporations. So we are never going to get our true liberation through that type of model. That's just an irrefutable fact. That's why we have to have independent revolutionary organizing models. And these examples I gave you, and time is short, we have many more examples we can give you, but these examples illustrate that this type of consciousness around revolutionary, independent, mass organizing is on the rebirth. It's on the rebound. People are beginning again to understand the importance of approaching work this way. And that's a beautiful thing, because when we have independent organizing, then we begin to produce revolutionary, independent revolutionaries. We don't produce these mealy mouth, pork chop mouth Negroes that are talking that you see and you think is leadership, because that's all you see, that's all you know. We begin to just go on YouTube and look at an interview of some of our people who come out of the independent revolutionary mass models I'm talking about. Look at interviews with Kwame Ture. Look at interviews with Assata Shakur. Look at interviews with Kwame Nkrumah, with Sekou Touré, Amilcar Cabral. Look at interviews with Huey P. Newton. The way they talk, a lot of you never even seen anybody talk like that to the white capitalist press. You never even seen that, because they didn't have anything to lose. They're not relying on capitalism for their funding. They rely only on the masses of the people. They're only accountable to the masses of the people. So they can say whatever the hell they want to say, and they can talk the truth. But now all you know is these Negroes who are tied up to the people that are giving them the money to buy the chitlins that they need to eat. So because of that, they can't say anything that really offends these people. So they're just basically mouthpieces for these people. And that's why the independent model is so critical. And it's so important that we're seeing more and more life signs for that and us moving back in that direction. So since we know that that's happening, the next and most important question for us is, what are we going to do about this to fan the flames, to throw oil on that fire of independent mass revolutionary organizing? What are we going to do and what we must do to do that? Well, the first thing, and we only have a short amount of time, so we can't get as deep into it as we would like to. And again, the whole point of our Ancestors' Voices is to hopefully inspire people to want to know more and do more. You know, we only have an hour. We only keep you for an hour, but we hope that this will inspire you to reach out to us and we can have further conversations. That's how you organize. This program is not the end when it ends in a few minutes. It's just the beginning. So what must we do? We have to recognize the moment. We have to recognize that it's time for us to decide what side of the fence that we're on. We got to stop all this mealy-mouth, two-faced, back and forth nonsense that poses as legitimate struggle for justice and liberation. One minute, yeah, I'm for revolution. Then the next minute you're talking about, well, you know, we got to figure out how to not keep Trump in there. I don't give a damn. I'm so sick of that. I don't care. Stop coming to me with that. It makes no difference at the end of the day, which capitalist, which old crack, you got one 70, 80-year-old cracker against another 80-year-old cracker, and you're trying to tell me that that's a choice. That's like saying I got a choice of getting stabbed with a dagger or getting shot. That ain't no damn choice. Yeah, technically to a fool, that's a choice. But to a thinking person, that's not. I don't even want to be. I have more value as a human being to disrespect myself with that low-level type of choice making. We deserve better choices than that. Stop talking to us about that. So we got to recognize that this is the moment we're in. What side are you on? Make a commitment or just sell out completely so we know. So when the war part of the revolutionary struggle begins and we see you, we can just sight our aims on you and eliminate the problem right away. So make a decision and say, okay, I'm going to be on the side of the forces of justice, and I'm going to stay on that side. I'm not going to go to what's convenient for me at the moment. We need people to decide. You sing that song, what side are you on? What side, or however the hell the song goes. But now you got to engage in the action. What side are you going to be on? And then the better organized we are on the independent level, the better position we are to disrupt the destruction aimed at our people and at justice-loving people. So that means all of us have to make it our personal responsibility to support independent organizations that organize, particularly on a mass revolutionary level. It's all of our responsibility. You know, NBC and CIA networks are not going to, you're going to see these same coons on there debating these issues. That's why nobody ever says anything, because the corporate sponsors are paying money so that no one ever says anything, because they're not going to pay for you to overthrow their system. So you're never going to see us on those platforms. That's why we have to create our own like this. But we need your help. You should see yourself as a promotional assistant to our Ancestors' Voices program. Your job should be every week. I'm not in any organization, so every week I'm going to tell at least 5 people, tune into our Ancestors' Voices. Every week I'm going to tell at least 5 people, go to the Ilahi Spirit Runners and support their indigenous fight. Every week I'm going to tell 5 people to join the Black Alliance for Peace. Every week I'm going to tell 5 people to join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. That's the least that you could do. And if you're not at least doing that, then you're on the enemy's side. You're not on our side. You're not doing anything to help us. In fact, all you're doing is you're just a sponge, sucking up all of the resources and giving nothing back, contributing nothing. So you can do that. Well, I don't know 5 people. Then take your ass out in front of a supermarket and meet 5 people. That takes you 10 minutes out of your week to do that. That's the kind of spirit that we need to elevate this work. That's what we need, you all. That's concrete. There's not a single person hearing this that can't do that. The only reason why it's not happening is because the will isn't there. And the will isn't there because we just ain't serious. It's time for us to get that seriousness. And it starts with each of us. What's your plan to make that type of contribution? Just say, I'm going to make a commitment to talk to 5 people a week about efforts happening to engage in independent organizing effort. And make an effort. Make an effort. Fidel Castro said correctly, the only qualification for leadership is sincerity. So that means you make an effort to talk to 5 people a week. Okay, you only talk to 2. That doesn't mean you're a failure. That's 2 more people that know about this work that didn't know about it before. So that's a beautiful thing. And you talk to 2 people and you tell them to bring 2 people to the program next week and to all our other programs and to all those other organizations and their programs. That's how we start to build the capacity to win, you all. That's how we do it. So I hope this means that if you're hearing this, you're going to make a commitment, because I already know most of the people that watch this program are not in organizations. I know this. I don't even have to know you, and I know this because I understand our people's struggle. I've been engaging in it for a long time, and I understand how to do the demographic work to determine how many of our people are in organizations fighting for our liberation. And if you do this for a while, you can get on social media and see how people talk, and you can tell whether they're in organizations or not immediately. You can tell immediately just based on how they talk about things, whether they're in organizations or not. You can tell. So I hope what this program does is help you to see, help us to see that, okay, I'm going to make a commitment to start my pathway. 5 people a week. That's all we're saying. Talk to them about this work and encourage them to participate. That, if we had 100 people talk to 5 people each, that would make a tremendous contribution. Just that little bit. 10 minutes a week. That's all we're talking about. So we hope that you can do that, make a commitment to do that, and you'll be making a positive commitment, you all, to move us all forward. And if you want to talk to those 5 people and you don't want to talk to them about the APRP because I'm pissing you off or whatever, that's fine. Talk to them about whatever other organization you want. The point is that we need to build capacity. We're not egotistical about this. We are much more focused on the big picture vision. We are not sitting here concerned about haters. We haters give us fuel to do this work. We don't give a damn about haters. So don't think, get your mind out of that. You're not going to get us caught up into that small-mindedness. If you don't want to promote us, that's fine. Promote something that's forwarding the progress of human beings. So we thank you for joining us today. We invite you back next week, July 16th. We're going to do a program talking about how it is to be a father-daughter in the same revolutionary organization, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. And we're going to be talking about it more from the standpoint of how we encourage each other, how we interact, what our relationship is like being in the same organization. So we think you'll find that extremely interesting. So join us, let 5 people know, and join us. Go to the APRP Forward Ever shop, buy some stuff to support the African Revolution. Join the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. Go to aprp-intl.org. Go to betterworld.me for these videos. Share them with 5 people at least. This one will be available within the hour. Go to hoodcommunist.org and support Hood Communists. Hood Communists have been raising money, and a lot of you contributed. That's great, but donate some more money anyway, and get 5 people to donate, and tell 5 people to go to Hood Communist every Thursday and read the articles and forward them 5 more people. Tell 5 people about all of the other APRP programs on your screen, and tell 5 people about my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. I was out there Friday and I was giving people elbow pads because sometimes we have to scrap with these people. And I buy those with the proceeds I get from the book. So give us organizing capacity. So we appreciate you coming. We want to wish you a great rest of your Sunday evening. Don't be discouraged. Y'all, we're winning. There's nothing to be discouraged about. Let's get busy. Get organized. Organization decides everything. Have a great rest of your Sunday evening. Forward ever, backwards never.